not long ago, Will Ferrell going between his third and fourth spring training games today, leaving the Reds-Diamondbacks contest where he played left field for the Diamondbacks and third base for Cincinnati. And on his way to the Sox-Giants game, that was the last of the four. He is in uniform as we speak here in Peoria. He will begin his day, I guess, on the mound for the Dodgers. We're anticipating sometime around the fifth inning. We're not quite sure what Will has up his sleeve because he wants to umpire. He might play amongst the fans. He might displace a base coach tonight. We're not quite sure, but this is the final act in this five-act drama here at spring training.
Well, I know that Will Ferrell did not appear in Forrest Gump, but tonight's going to be like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. One thing for sure, Rick Monday, is that there's going to be a lot of smiles, a lot of laughs at the Peoria Sports Complex tonight in Arizona.
You know, the amazing thing is that three of us went into the San Diego Padres locker room previously. I've been in Glendale and talking to the Dodgers in their locker room. The players are looking forward to this. The fans are looking forward to this. And quite frankly, I think this is a great thing for baseball because in spring training, no holds barred.
A pretty good game mixed in as well, guys. Let's take a look at the Dodger lineup presented by Best Western. This is how Don Mattingly aligns his Dodgers. More or less the opening day group with Rollins, Crawford, and Puig up top. Former Padre Adrian Gonzalez batting cleanup at first base. Howie Kendrick, one of the big key offseason additions at second base in the 5-hole. Andre Ethier, Juan Uribe, and A.J. Ellis, the veterans batting 6 through 8. And the youngster Jock Peterson, around whom there's been so much excitement. One of the Dodgers' top prospects, one of the top prospects in all of baseball, batting number 9 tonight. On the mound for San Diego, the 33-year-old staff ace, after signing a 4-year, $73 million offseason deal, right-hander James Shields.
The rotation for the San Diego Padres was good last year. It got even better with big game James. Tonight he's going to go 2 or 3 innings, maybe around 45, 50 pitches. Maddie and Rick, he throws a fastball, a cutter, and a changeup. Believe it or not, no curveballs up to this point. Why? He's trying to locate the fastball, work on that fastball, in and out, up and down. We may see some hammers tonight out of the hands of James Shields.
I don't think anybody out there that's gone through spring trainings as often as James Shields has, and this is his 10th Major League season, is worried about earning his keep in early March.
No, not worrying about that. And for the veteran players, they understand exactly how their bodies are talking to them. And it's really surprising to see some of the pitchers come into spring training. I think of Clayton Kershaw's first outing, second game that the Dodgers played. He came out and it was nose-to-toes curveball already. But some guys like to go ahead and, for hitters, get a lot of at-bats. And for pitchers, some guys are going to start to stretch it out now over the next day or two.
And Rick and Maddie, that seems to be the M.O. for Darren Balsey, the pitching coach of the San Diego Padres, and Bud Black for the starters and the relievers alike early on. They want to try to locate, get the arm strength up and locate that fastball, then start spinning a few. So it should be a good night tonight if you see some curveballs from James Shields. See what he's all about now in a Padre uniform.
Ready for baseball tonight. A gorgeous evening for baseball here in the Cactus League. The amber skies indicating more good weather on its way tomorrow as Jimmy Rollins would lead things off for Los Angeles. Beginning a brand new phase in his career. Again, one of the key offseason changes in L.A. and we're underway in Peoria tonight with strike one. 15 years in Philadelphia, and at the age of 36, trying to quote Vin Scully from a movie role, push the setting sun back up into the sky a little bit longer. Jimmy still feels like he has a lot to prove, and the former National League MVP has a new lease on life in the NL West.
4 Gold Gloves, 3-time All-Star, and that switch hitter. The Dodgers don't really have what you would label as a prototypical type of a leadoff hitter. As Buddy Black was talking earlier this afternoon, Padres don't find themselves in that situation either. But Rollins is a guy that finds how to get on base, and what we have seen so far, nothing different than in his great career while he was with the Phillies.
Ball and 2 strikes from James Shields to get us started tonight, and a ground ball chance for Jed Jerko to begin the proceedings this evening. Let's take a look at the San Diego defense. In much the same way Don Mattingly offers close to an opening day group, so does Bud Black, with Upton, Myers, and Kemp in the outfield. Will Middlebrooks, Clint Farmas, Jed Jerko, and Yonder Alonso were on the right side. New catcher Derek Norris and James Shields on the mound for San Diego tonight.
Had a pretty good defense last year, the Padres. When you look at that diamond, center field, shortstop, second base, catcher, you know, how is Will Myers going to react in center field? Working very hard with Dave Roberts on this outfield play.
Dave Roberts, a longtime coach with the Padres, a former Padre and Dodger, is a player who has a lot of familiarity with those in uniform tonight, including this guy, the left fielder Carl Crawford.
Biggest thing from Crawford, he is healthy. The legs held up last year, and surprisingly enough, his legs have really helped him. Does not have the strongest throwing arm in the outfield. Some runners trying to take advantage of him. He's already thrown out this spring 2 different runners, and he has stopped 3 other runners from advancing.
Well, one of the big stories last year is Shields' deals on 0-2. And Rick, you were there to watch this whole drama unfold. How was Don Mattingly going to get regular playing time for a group of accomplished veteran outfielders? Too many players for not enough positions, and I'm not sure they're not facing that same kind of situation this year.
Well, we see Andre Ethier's in the lineup tonight. He's going to start in center field, but 4 guys for 3 spots. Somebody doesn't play.
Little looper out to Alonso for route number 2.
And oddly enough, we're going to see all 4 tonight, because Jock Peterson, who is that guy that's, I don't know if he's on the cusp or if he's a young guy, he's done everything at the minor league level. He's going to serve as the designated hitter tonight. Ethier will be in center field. We know he's going to be left and right. It's going to be Crawford in left. Puig is going to be in right, although remember, Puig played 52 games in center field last year.
Rick, what would Jock Peterson's biggest asset be, his biggest part of his game?
He can run the ball down in center field. At the minor league level, he's put up some monstrous numbers from an offensive standpoint. The question is, with every young player that's come up, can you make the transition, carry those numbers from the minor leagues to the major leagues?
There's Yasiel Puig now with 2 away, and the question for his transition this year, Rick, is can he move from a top of the order guy to the middle of the order, be the run producer they project him to be, yet not lose out in any of his other categories offensively?
Yeah. Matt, excellent question. I think is one word: patience. I think he's displayed that at various times. He's taken his foot off the accelerator a little bit, so to speak. And for Yasiel Puig, he is now, I think, understanding. We've not seen him miss a cutoff man defensively in the spring. That in itself is kind of a story. One game 2 years ago when he came up, he missed 9 cutoff men in one game.
I think he hit a popcorn vendor one time, too, on the fly.
Yeah, hard. But Puig does a lot of different things. The other thing, when he puts the ball into play, he runs hard all the time. Monstrous power. And all he has to do is to get a ball. And from time to time, he's going to learn that strike zone of his and be more consistent.
Well, it really looked like a good changeup out of the hand of Shields, righty on righty.
And that has been James Shields' money pitch. The cutter that time gets Puig frozen, and a scoreless start to the night, authored by San Diego's new staff ace. To the bottom of the first, the Padres taking swings against Hyun-Jin Ryu next. to the Padres starting lineup presented by Best Western. Will Myers, Derek Norris, and Matt Kemp, part of the overhaul, leads things off. It'll be the two-time All-Star Justin Upton batting fourth in left field. Carlos Quinton, Will Middlebrooks, holdovers Yonder Alonso and Jed Jerko 7 and 8. Clint Barmas will round it out in the 9th spot. And we are ready for Hyun-Jin Ryu's spring debut. The veteran left-hander kicks to fire his first pitch of the spring. Well, Hyun-Jin Ryu coming off a season last year, Rick, in which he made 26 starts, posted the 14-7 record that you see there. Slotted once again in the middle of a very good Dodgers starting rotation.
And was really even better. And if he had 5 days rest in between starts, he was 5-0 with an ERA of 1.15. Had some back issues last year. They said that's all taken care of. He's raring to go. His native career, he was a 7-time All-Star before he came over and signed with the Dodgers. And I think the one thing that we see about Hyun-Jin Ryu, he surprises a lot of hitters with the fastball. It gets on them maybe a little bit more quickly than they really kind of perceive. Good changeup, but his whole thing is to try and get hitters off balance and, if can, sneak the fastball by them.
Rick, that's a great point, because I think he has a tendency to throw a lot of off-speed pitches early in the count and then put him away with that fastball. Sneaks up on him, like you said.
Try and set one up with the other one. And if one is not that effective, he tries to go the other way.
A ball and 2 strikes. He starts Will Myers, Norris, and Kemp to follow here in the first. Hyun-Jin Ryu again making his first official appearance of the spring. It flips a big curveball up to the eyes of Will Myers to even it at 2 balls and 2 strikes. There are so many directions to take our conversation in getting started here, guys. Whether it's a new Padre, whether it's what's ahead for guys like Hyun-Jin Ryu and a veteran terrific Dodger staff. Myers fouls that 2-2 pitch away. The low-hanging fruit and the first thing you go to when you look at this matchup on paper are all the new names on the San Diego lineup card. This is a complete overhaul, the likes of which I don't know that a team in that division, I don't know that a team anywhere has seen in the last couple of decades. What A.J. Preller did in a very short amount of time is to give Buddy Black a completely new toolbox to work with. And that's why there's so much optimism in San Diego this year.
I'll tell you what, for A.J. Preller to make the acquisitions that he did and help that man there and the manager, Bud Black at the San Diego Padres, fill out a lineup card much more differently than it's been the last 4 or 5 years. Not just a facelift, I'm talking straight up Botox, lipo, tummy tuck, full go, full bore everything for the Padres this year.
Myers lines that right to the perfectly aligned Jimmy Rollins for the first out. Let's take a look at the defense for Los Angeles behind Hyun-Jin Ryu and a cast of characters behind him to pitch. The veteran infield, Uribe, Rollins, Kendrick, and Gonzalez. It's Crawford, Ethier, and Puig in the outfield tonight. And A.J. Ellis behind the plate.
Man, I think both ball clubs, if you're looking at it, 21 of the 40 men on the roster for the Padres, new faces. They were not here last year. What is overlooked is that the Dodgers 40-man roster, there are 19 new faces on that roster as well.
Different type of offense as far as scoring runs this year, Rick, you think, for the guys in blue?
Different type. You guys will see it in San Diego, and that's the power of Matt Kemp. He does make decisions that have to be made in the opposing dugout during the process of a game, especially when the game's on the line.
Derek Norris punches a fly ball out to Yasiel Puig, who glides into the corner for route number 2.
And that's going to be important for the Padres. I mean, if you look, the runs scored, last in the majors. Average, last in the majors. On base percentage, that was at the bottom. Slugging percentage at the bottom. And now with the addition of some guys that are qualified hitters, the San Diego Padres are a different team to deal with. We already know that the pitching has been right there.
Fans reacting to the announcement of Matt Kemp, who will bat with 2 out and the bases empty. And it was a positive reaction. Rick, I'll ask you, when the season begins and San Diego travels to Los Angeles, do you expect the same kind of polite, appreciative response from Matt Kemp?
Well, I think that they will appreciate his efforts, and the fact before the injuries, he had played about 400 games, consecutive games, without the injuries. But a vicious collision in the wall in Denver against that fence that caused a couple of different shoulder surgeries, the ankle injury that he really kind of brought upon himself with a slide in Cincinnati. But for Matt Kemp, he has just unheralded power. and it looks like he's come in healthy. He will make a difference for Buddy Black in his lineup.
Newly acquired hitting coach on the right there, sitting next to Bud Black, was Mark Kotsay. So he and Matt Kemp will be spending a lot of time in the cage. Just doing some soft toss off the tee.
The only guy perhaps happier than Bud Black upon hearing that Matt Kemp had been acquired from Los Angeles was Mark Kotsay, who said immediately, "I've just become a much better hitting coach." A ball and 2 strikes, the count to Matt Kemp.
Yeah, you feel that way when you add a Matt Kemp, a Justin Upton, and a Will Myers. But the Padres have not really had a solidified spot as far as the hitting coaches. They've gone through quite a few of them, really, over the last few years.
They certainly have. A ball and 2 strikes, the count to Kemp. Justin Upton waiting on deck. A big part of the offseason overhaul as well. Well, these two teams won't have a lot of time to wait before they start for real, because San Diego opens the regular season with 3 in Los Angeles Monday, April 6th. And the rivalry between the two Southern California National League entries will start immediately. The comebacker for Ryu, and as was the case in the top of the inning, the Padres go down in order. We're on to the second in the Cactus League tonight. No score in Peoria. Network is presented by Best Western. Stay with people who care. And sponsored in part by Chevrolet. Find new roads. And by Subway. Try the new Turkey Italiano Melt at Subway today. Subway, eat fresh. Will Ferrell's days on SNL would have enjoyed a Subway sandwich, among others. His hosting of Jeopardy still makes you smile. Adrian Gonzalez dropping down a bunch. Shields spikes the throw, but a nice play by Yonder Alonso on the receiving end. And there's one away.
Great athletic ability by James Shields. That's the first part. The second part is over at first base, Yonder Alonso. Last year, he worked diligently with Glenn Hoffman, the third base coach, of just picking balls out of the dirt. Gonzalez does not have blazing speed. Watch Shields to his right. Look at that athleticism. He's only the best athlete on the field, for the love of Pete. And he makes the play, a little help with his first baseman.
I got to tell you, is that 3 days ago I heard on the dugout microphone Adrian Gonzalez telling the great Maury Wills, "Hey, I was thinking about bunting." I asked Maury the next day. He goes, "Yeah, he was actually thinking about bunting." Well, he did more than think about it tonight.
One gone here for Howie Kendrick, and you know that's part of the dialogue for 2015, guys, that I'm most interested in seeing, because the use of the overload, the infield shift, is, in the estimation of some, out of control. The only way to beat it, according to others, is to adjust and learn how to do just what Adrian Gonzalez was attempting to do. He has played for the most part in that overloaded right side almost every time he hits with the bases empty.
Adrian Gonzalez had a great line for it last year. I asked him, I said, well, what about the shift? He goes, the opposing coaches have to do something, and that's kind of the story on it. But here's my question. If you're going to ban the shift, are you going to put markers out of the infield? You can only go over this far. You can go that far. Play the game. If they're playing the shift, hit it the other way if you need to.
We've got clocks now. Why not put cones out there?
Yeah, or bicycle racks. You can only go to the bicycle rack to one particular area or the other.
I think a lot has to do with what we just saw. James Shields being a tremendous athlete on the mound. I think a different type of pitcher who isn't as mobile when a guy like Gonzalez bunts is a better idea for Adrian when he does that.
Pitcher misses outside to Howie Kendrick, and it's 2-2 now.
And Rick, you were the hitter, so are you going to change your style or your strength if you see a shift out there? Me being a pitcher, if a guy's not going to change his style, I think the advantage kind of goes towards a hitter being confident saying in his type of game rather than trying to adjust.
Yeah, I think there are times that opposing clubs may be saying, hey, look, the big guy that can hit the ball a long way, go ahead if you want to bunt. That's a single. The problem with Adrian Gonzalez trying to bunt is that even if he is successful, he is strictly a base-to-base type of a speed guy. You have to hit a double or a triple in order to score him.
Check the count to Kendrick. The 3-2 pitch is swung on and missed. Another great changeup from the changeup specialist, James Shields.
Shields pulling the string in a fastball count. That tells you something there. A spring training game. He wants to get the feel for the old cambio. Way out in front is Kendrick.
Not an easy pitch to hit during the regular season, especially in spring, where hitters, I mean, granted, you're trying to get back to muscle memory. Your mind knows what your body's trying to do, but it's being able to repeat it. And for Andre Ethier, he has a burden on his shoulder. Is there a spot open? And who's going to raise their hand and claim that center field position?
Ethier started with strike one. Yeah, I think in an ideal world, Andrew Friedman would be allowed to go back and perhaps adjust payroll and adjust salaries based on who was going to get plate appearances at various spots. That's not the case, of course. That's not what he inherited. And the Dodgers are going to have some decisions to make come the end of camp as to not only who's going to play where, Rick, but perhaps most intriguingly, who's going to be among the one or two platoon guys, bench options that Don Mattingly takes with him out of Camelback Ranch.
Exactly, and Jock Peterson has an opportunity to claim that center field position as a starting role. Ethier will then go to a backup role unless there's a trade. And the Dodgers have said, look, we may take part of the salary, but one thing baseball people know is that you're going to have injuries during your season. And you need a strong bench to begin with. Scott Van Slyke is one of the guys that's come off and played various positions. First base. He'll play the outfield as well. But you need that supplemental part of your roster. Now, who's going to be the supplemental part and who's going to be the starters for this club?
Boy, I tell you what, it takes a lot for a guy like Ethier, if he's going to be that odd guy out, the bench guy, to have that confidence, have that presence on the bench, and not be the guy who's going to, I'm not going to say bring the team down, but you got to have that attitude if you are that guy, that veteran guy being the bench guy. I think that shows you what a player's all about, if you can handle that.
He's hitting 364 at this point in the early goings of spring training.
2 balls and 2 strikes to him with the bases empty and 2 away. There is some outstanding money owed to veterans Carl Crawford and Andre Ethier. $56 million still due Andre Ethier, over $62 to Carl Crawford. And there are other players, younger players. Rick alluded to Jock Peterson earlier. Alex Guerrero, a guy that can play a lot of positions for them. Enrique Hernandez has certainly impressed a lot of folks around here in spring. And whether or not they have a chance, given the big payroll owed the veterans, remains to be seen. Still 2 balls and 2 strikes to Andre Ethier.
Well, obviously the salary is going to dictate some decisions, but if you're looking at the Dodgers, they unloaded some big contracts. And they said, look, you're not going to fit into our ball club. Look at Brian Wilson. He's on $9.5 million. It was Wilson who had the option to come back. He exercised the option, and the Dodgers said, well, I think we're going to move in another direction.
3 strikeouts for James Shields to start his night. A couple of scoreless innings by the veteran right-hander. So the bottom of the second still scoreless in Peoria. Telecast presented by Best Western from the Peoria Sports Complex in Peoria, Arizona. Matt Vasgersian with from Fox Sports San Diego, Mark Grant, and from Sportsnet LA, Rick Monday and Alana Rizzo. Back to work in his second inning, 27-year-old left-hander Hyun-Jin Ryu. He will face the middle of the Padres order here, Justin Upton, Carlos Quentin, and Will Middlebrooks. And a quick 2-0 start to Justin Upton. Well, big numbers last year in the power department for the guy they called Jay Up, the two-time All-Star. Part of the offseason change in Atlanta. And when you talk about teams that were active this offseason, we certainly can't limit the conversation to San Diego and LA. The White Sox beefed up. Oakland unloaded. The Braves unloaded. There has been change all across the major league landscape, and San Diego benefiting from Atlanta's desire to change their financial mix.
I just think it's refreshing how in Major League Baseball it's not the same handful of teams always making the transactions. The Braves, we know what they're all about. Freddie Gonzalez, it's going to be one of those type of years for the Braves manager, and of course the Padres making all those moves.
Good changeup that time by Ryu, has Upton out in front, 3-2 to him. And Mark, you can speak to some of these prospects that the Braves acquired. John Hart was excited about the compensation package he got.
John Hart very excited, but from the Padres standpoint, prospects are just that, right? Prospects.
Right.
That's what A.J. Preller did. Out of 10 of the 15 that they traded to make the moves and put the major league players like Upton, Kemp into that clubhouse, how many realistically, Rick, come out to be bona fide big league ball players?
Yeah, we had a conversation earlier this afternoon. Bud Black knows it very well and knows around baseball. The prospects sometimes turn into suspects after they play because this is a different game at the major league level.
Upton sends a ball out to center field. Ethier on the move, and he gets there to run it down at the track. 4 up, 4 down for Hyun-Jin Ryu, making his spring debut tonight. And Alana Rizzo, it's a number of Dodger starters making their spring debuts this week.
Yeah, Matt, that was the exact case for the right-hander, the veteran right-hander, Zach Greinke, who made his first Cactus League start yesterday after receiving a lubricating injection in his right elbow back on February 19th. Now, after an 8-pitch first inning, he gave up 2 earned runs and 2 walks in the second inning, but he said he was actually pleased with the outing because he wasn't concerned about the results. He was more concerned about tweaking his slider, trying to make it move a little bit more like a cutter, trying to tighten it up. He also said that he feels completely confident that despite the fact that he just made his first spring outing, he will be ready to go stretched out enough for the regular season.
Yeah, Alana, thanks. I know there was a lot of talk whenever you hear about somebody like Zach Greinke getting an injection of any kind, even though it's routine for him, and he had to explain that. A lot of people from the outside kind of think, oh my goodness, that can't be a good thing. It's normal, it's standard operating procedure for Zach.
That's part of the makeup for Greinke. And we mentioned earlier that Hyun-Jin Ryu, a little back issue last year, but that's kind of normal for Hyun-Jin Ryu. But pitchers, and Mark, you can address this, pitchers like hitters have a routine earlier going. And it might be tonight one particular pitcher. Pitchers say, look, I'm going to throw more of these type pitches than I might normally in a game because you have a timetable and the clock is ticking. You know when you have to have it for real. So this is a setup, if you will, to try and get advancement every time you go out.
Everybody's different, Rick, and Matty alluded to it earlier, where everybody has their own type of recipe. In fact, I think you mentioned it, Rick, to where you go out there and you throw a certain pitch. I remember one spring training in particular, Dave Stewart was the pitching coach of the Padres. Andy Ashby was on the hill for the Friars.
It would have been, what, 98?
It was a while ago, but Dave Stewart said to Andy, you're throwing nothing but fastballs tonight. You're going to locate the fastball. We're just going to do away with the breaking ball.
Swing and a miss by Carlos Quentin. 2 gone for Ryu here. And then what did it sound like when Andy Ashby, also a former Dodger, what did the response sound like?
He kind of felt free and easy that night, just throwing the fastball.
2 gone now for Will Middlebrooks.
Andy would say, hey, Andy, I'd say you're throwing the ball really well. Ball's coming out of your hand nicely. It's coming out like a cotton ball. Nothing behind it, right?
Strike 1 to Middlebrooks.
You know, hitters do the same thing. With the A's one year, the late Charlie Lau was the hitting coach, and we played against a team, don't remember what it was, a division rival. It was a pitcher that had pretty good success against us. And Charlie says, how does he get you out? I said, well, with a fastball in. He goes, you hit the curveball well? He says, yeah. He said, don't swing at the curveball today unless you have 2 strikes. And I said, why? He says, set him up now.
You know, you hear stories about that.
Yeah, exactly.
Would that work in the spring?
And if you think of the concept, you say, hey, wait a minute, I'm going to take a pitch here in the spring instead of just pounding the ball that you normally hit pretty well in case he throws it.
A couple of strikeouts for Hyun-Jin Ryu in round 2, 1, 2, 3 seconds. Still scoreless in Peoria.
Stop was Scottsdale, Arizona. He needed to be choppered over to Glendale, Arizona, so that he could fulfill the requirements of DHing for the Chicago White Sox, which he will do in moments. We'll keep you updated there. He's also going to catch for the San Francisco Giants before heading to Peoria, where Matt, Mark, Rick, and Alana are standing by. We'll keep you posted.
A reminder, MLB.TV Premium is the #1 live streaming sports service. It's now available. Watch every out-of-market game live in HD on over 400 different devices. Visit MLB.TV. Top half of the third, Juan Uribe, A.J. Ellis, and Jock Peterson in a game that's still looking for its first base runner. James Shields, 3 strikeouts in a couple of scoreless innings. 2 punch-outs, 2 scoreless innings by his opposite number, Hyun-Jin Ryu tonight.
Shields has faced now 7 batters. He's thrown first pitch strike to all 7.
He's got the nice little cutter working tonight as well. Throwing it behind the count. And when you've got a big swing like Uribe right there, you can really counter that with an off-speed pitch out of the zone like he just did. Just do not hang him a slider in the zone. Why? Because you hang him, oh, he will bang you.
Veteran corner man coming off a very good 2014. Juan Uribe hit .311 last year with the Dodgers. Really, after that first 3-year deal that didn't look like it was going to pan out into much, really resurrected his days in Los Angeles and has turned into a big-time contributor there. Goes down on the changeup. 4 strikeouts for James Shields. We're still waiting for Will Ferrell to make his appearance here. This was a part of his afternoon at the Cubs-Angels game earlier today. Played center field for the Angels. Played first base for the Cubs. Was not happy when he was removed. And we're told once again, by way of advertising and promoting what we're going to see here tonight, he's going to try his hand at umpiring. He's going to pitch for L.A. and he's going to end the night in right field for San Diego. We think. A.J. Ellis, the batter now for Los Angeles. You know, at first glance, when you think about those players, and there have been 4 of them who played all 9 in a game, it's being in that battery that would, I guess to the outsider, provide the biggest challenge. To have to pitch and negotiate 3 outs, to have to catch and call a game.
And especially if you're looking at Campy Campaneris and Cesar Tovar, the first 2 guys that did it. capturing the photo of them with the catching gear on it. It was like, well, the little leaguer picked up a set of catching gear and put it on. But the guys that have done it over the years, only 4 in Major League history.
You know, you always have to be concerned about these position players getting up on the hill in one pitch, blowing out. I'm talking Jose Canseco style.
Exactly.
Just takes one pitch. If you're not used to it, it's a whole different angle.
A much different circumstance tonight in the Cactus League. Games that don't count per se. A little more congenial feel to these exhibition games, and a little friendlier for somebody like Will Ferrell to do what he's doing, which, by the way, is going to provide funds and generate support for cancer research. It's a big part of the storyline as Ellis swings and misses. And another strikeout for James Shields.
And another changeup. And we just saw that A.J. Ellis went down. The Dodgers really have something to decide upon, and that's the catching core. Collectively, they hit 188. And it's not going to be much higher than that if they keep having changeups like this thrown to them.
James Shields is really slicing and dicing the plate time with the fastball. Great location. Mixing in a couple breaking balls out of the zone and then finishing off with that changeup of his. Great arm speed on all those pitches.
Here is the young outfield prospect, Jock Peterson. Big numbers last year at AAA, 33 home runs. Did not have that same kind of success in his very limited major league audition last year. 18 big league games and went 4 for 38 as a September call-up last season.
And what we just saw is one of the things that young players have to understand. See the ball first, and you cannot offer at the delivery. Peterson has that leg kick. He starts with a very narrow stance to begin with. The problem, if you start with a narrow stance, you have a tendency to get a little bit long in the stride, and the longer the stride is, the longer the bat has to go through, and it's not as quick in the hitting zone.
Also, Rick, would lower your head too. The more you stride, right? Does that have the eye level come into play as well?
It can, because there's so much movement and movement during the swing.
3 perfect innings by James Shields, who is likely done for the night after a terrific Cactus League appearance this evening. Still scoreless in Peoria. By Brewers Mariners at 4, then at 7 catch Yankees Red Sox, catch over 200. It is cool, 200 spring training games this season in nonstop action live tomorrow, presented by Best Western. It's great to see that after all these years your skills as a broadcaster have not changed much. But yet it's that other button Sergio Santos is the new pitcher for Los Angeles. He'll take over here in the bottom half of the third. So 2 innings of work from the starter Hyun-Jin Ryu, as Santos goes to work on Yonder Alonso to start San Diego's half of the inning. Alonso, Jerko, and Barmes for the Padres.
Santos, a Los Angeles native. 2010 ranked among the American League rookie leaders in strikeouts and 8th in the American League career saves with 30. I should say that year with the White Sox. 5 different seasons of the big leagues, the White Sox and the Blue Jays. Dodgers, if we think of last year, they came to spring training with 4 different people with experience as the closer. Kenley Jansen was there. Then you had Brandon Lee, Brian Wilson, and then you had Perez also. Well, League at the second half of the season got it together. But for Perez and Wilson, it was a long, long year. And when it came down to the end of the season and even the postseason play, how do you get the ball to Kenley Jansen? Jansen begins now with foot surgery on a bone in his foot, and there is no actual timetable on when he may be back.
2 balls and a strike to count to Yonder Alonso.
And on the flip side for the Padres, talk about bullpen. One of the best in Major League Baseball last year. Houston Street traded to the Halos. He was 24 as a Padre. Joaquin Benoit stepped in. He did a great job. And how about this little nugget? The Padres, after 6 innings last year, were 60-1. That's right, 60-1.
On the ground for Gonzalez. Back to Santos covering, and there's 1 away. And we'll bring Alana Rizzo in on this conversation. You know, it was thought to be a strength last year. Rick's point, Alana, that there were so many relievers with closers experience, and I guess it goes to show you can never have enough candidates in a time like the spring.
Well, and Matt, a couple of the candidates for the temporary closer position are a little bit banged up too. Kenley Jansen, of course, you guys were just talking about him. He's now able to put 75% of weight on that foot that he had surgery on. He should be off crutches within 5 days. But temporary closer candidate J.P. Howell was dealing with a mild groin strain. He should, however, pitch in a game again on Sunday. Joel Peralta, who entered spring with that shoulder stiffness, he threw live BP on Tuesday, should be pitching in a game on Sunday. Brandon Lee, you guys were just talking about it. He has closer experience, but Rick can tell you, don't sleep on Chris Hatcher.
Oh, tell us, Rick, as Jed Jerko takes swings here 0-1 to Santos.
Well, with Hatcher, it's one of those. You start to look at ball clubs and the makeup of different teams. And there's going to be some guys, if you take a nap, someone's going to pass you in the race. There's no question about that end of it. J.P. Howell, Alana brought up a good point about J.P. and talking to him yesterday. It's the point of a veteran player who said that he felt a little tightness in his groin. So rather than have a pull and an issue, he said, look, let's just kind of back off of it. So he's on the bicycle and the treadmill, and he'll be pitching soon again.
2 gone as Jerko swings and misses, rather. That'll bring up the veteran Clint Barmes now with 2 away. Barmes back in the National League West after a number of good years as a Colorado Rocky. He was reunited with Clint Hurdle as a Pittsburgh Pirate and is one of a number of candidates for considerable playing time on the left side of the infield, Mark, and I don't think Bud Black's in a position where he would say either shortstop or third base is a lock and key job at this point.
No, Barmes, you have to take into consideration the age, 36 years old. Last year he only hit 245 in Pittsburgh, up and down the minor leagues with some issues. And Alexi Amarista, there's a guy you can plug in almost anywhere on the field. That's the shortstop position. Third base, you got Will Middlebrooks coming over. Solarte, Jan Hervis Solarte, who's a pretty good athlete in his own right. So, like you said, there's a competition going on in those 2 positions on the left side.
Barmes is also coming back. He had that one good year when he came up early in his career with the Rockies. And then the second year, he went hunting with Todd Helton. Helton gave him some venison meat. He was going up the stairway to his apartment, slipped, fell, broken collarbone.
Oh, I remember that story. That's right. DL due to venison.
Venison.
0-2 the count to Barmes here.
And it took a while for the actual story to get out.
For understandable reasons.
Yes.
0-2 from Santos is swung on and missed. Why not? Sergio Santos follows suit with a perfect inning in the third. On to the top of the fourth. Still no score in Peoria.
良質熟練の技革新
The spring training game presented by Best Western from the Peoria Sports Complex in Peoria, Arizona. Matt Vasgersian with Mark Grant, Rick Monday, and Alana Rizzo. A scoreless game so far. Pitching has been the order of the night. James Shields was terrific for his quick 3-inning appearance. 3 scoreless innings with 5 strikeouts, and he has yielded to the top of the order as Matt Whistler takes over to face Jimmy Rollins, Carl Crawford, and Yasiel Puig.
Well, Matt Whistler signed back in 2011. He was a 7th round selection of the first-year player draft, and very high expectations from this young right-hander. 22 years old, nice record. ERA almost 4 1/2.
Yeah, one of the youngest starters in the PCL last year.
And PCL, you make a good point, Matt. It's tough pitching in that league. You got an ERA around 4, 4.5. It's, you know what, that's acceptable. He throws a fastball, slider, curveball, changeup.
I know it's early, and nobody's going to get too excited about 3 scoreless innings from a veteran starter like James Shields, but the changeup, among other pitches in the repertoire, looked to be in midseason form. And I know that if you're a Padre fan, as that one's lined right to Alonso, and you know how the team made its hay with good starting pitching, you have to be excited about the addition of a guy who, let's face it, was on the wish list in places like San Francisco and other cities within the division. There were a lot of folks that were really surprised James Shields ended up in San Diego.
I think it's a great story for the San Diego Padres because now baseball has another team that is saying, hey, we're viable right now. And that's exactly what the message has been by the Padres.
Carl Crawford slaps a ground ball to the right of Jed Jerko. To the left of Jed Jerko is where it gets away from him.
There goes the no-hitter.
And there's our game's first base runner.
You know, Matty, you made an observation off air a couple of innings ago. Now, it's understandable that the first base Padres dugout would be jammed with players. This is their home ballpark. But because we're waiting for the arrival of Will Ferrell, the Dodgers look like, well, their dugout looks like an aircraft carrier just came in and docked in port. It's standing room only over there.
I don't know that I've seen a team on the road in a Cactus League game travel like a college football team.
No, because normally they take guys and they go kicking and screaming. Not tonight.
Kicking and screaming, also a Will Ferrell product. One out, one on base runner now for Yasiel Puig. Another chance for Jerko, flips to Barmas, and they get them both. Listen, the way this one's going, Will Ferrell's going to have a hard time getting here in timely manner.
Police escort better put on the lights.
If you're listening, Will, rev up the chopper a little tighter, will you? We're already in the fourth, and it's scoreless. Names heading into the new season tomorrow at 10 Eastern and every night through opening day, only on MLB Network, presented by Sports Authority. Back alongside Mark Grant, Rick Monday, and Alana Rizzo, Matt Vasgersian in Peoria. One base runner tonight. Starters were both effective in their brief appearances, and the Dodgers are on to their second reliever of the ball game. He is Mike Bolsinger, who will work this the bottom of the fourth.
Bolsinger coming over from the Arizona Diamondbacks. Dodgers acquired him late November.
Had some time last year with the big league club in Arizona, working in 10 games, 17 appearances at AAA Reno for the D-backs, and they'll face Will Myers, Derek Norris, and Matt Kemp for San Diego.
Bolsinger in his career, he's had a very good strikeout to walk ratio.
Bouncing ball to the overloaded left side of the infield, and that's where Howie Kendrick on the other side of the second base bag makes the play.
The opposite shift working, huh?
Yeah, Gonzalez dropped the ball, but it was ruled that it was in the act of getting the ball out of the glove and then dropped it.
Well, we don't want to go through that again.
It was a football move. Is that what you're saying?
Just about.
Yeah, is that what they call it?
Remember a couple of years ago, all the hand-wringing in the league office about that very play, that after the transfer, when a ball was dropped, there was this emphasis on whether or not the runner would be safe, and the league had to come clean it up, and sure enough, everything was restored to normal. Here's Derek Norris now with one gone. Still waiting for Will Ferrell's appearance tonight. And as we indicated getting into that last half inning break, the pace of this one's working against him this evening.
I'm guessing he maybe stopped off to see a chiropractor maybe after playing in all those games and coming over here for the nightcap.
You know, his morning started, even looking at the list, about 6 a.m. this morning doing interviews.
Norris with a hot shot to third. Look at Uribe looking spry to his right for out number 2. Well, Will Ferrell certainly no stranger to the culture of Major League Baseball. One of his most loved impressions of one of our game's most loved voices.
We all know that the moon is not made of green cheese. But what if it were made of barbecue spare ribs? Would you eat it then?
What?
I know I would. Heck, I'd have seconds. And then polish it off with a tall, cool Budweiser.
Will Ferrell's Harry Carey has gotten to be such a thing that when John Q. Public does a Harry Carey impersonation, it's an impersonation of Will Ferrell's impersonation of Harry Carey.
Yeah, the impersonation now has changed from what Harry actually did.
Right. Fly ball out to the right field corner for Yasiel Puig, who glides over there to retire Matt Kemp. And just like that, it's another 1-2-3 inning. We played 4 complete. The Padres and Dodgers all scoreless in Peoria. Training game on MLB Network is brought to you by Capital One. Switch to the Venture Card from Capital One and earn unlimited double miles you can use with no blackout dates. And sponsored in part by Delta. Keep climbing. And by Best Western. Stay with people who care. Just some stills from Campy Campaneris' Major League history-making night back in 1965 when he played in all 9 positions. First player to do so. And again, a part of our dialogue tonight, Will Ferrell will be arriving shortly, we're told. He will finish his night having attempted and completed to play all 9 in the same day over various games here in the Cactus League. Adrian Gonzalez leads off the LA fifth.
That last photo of Campy Campaneris playing at first base, that's the proverbial overmatched. Campy's holding Joe Adcock at first base.
Joe Adcock singled in a run against Campy earlier in that game.
I like that still shot of when Campy was behind the plate, but this is the first base.
Oh, this is a mismatch. Campy's standing there. Okay, now what do? I feel good at shortstop. He also played 65 games in his major league career at third base, but primarily a shortstop and a dandy.
2-1 to Gonzalez on the ground is short for Jed Jerko.
And behind home plate, putting on the tools of ignorance. Look at the hand. Protected the right hand behind the backside, so the foul tip doesn't get one of the fingers.
You look pretty natural back there.
Yeah, it looks okay.
He was in protection mode. Don't be fooled.
Playing defense.
How about back then, though? No helmets for the catcher.
Yeah.
Straight cap turned back around. No helmet. Wow.
Here's Howie Kendrick now. Rick, for the benefit of those that weren't with us earlier when we were talking about Cesar Tovar, who played all 9 a few years later against the A's, you were a teammate of his then. Or you were an A then.
I played against Tovar.
So
he was with the Twins.
He was a Twin. You were an A, and he did it. What was the attitude like among the A's then? Were you feeling like you were kind of circus freaked because here's this guy playing all 9 against us?
Matty, here's a line for you. We played for the A's, the Oakland A's, first year in Oakland. The owner was Charlie Finley. We were already a circus. I mean, they could have brought in the big top. But quite frankly, to be honest with you, nobody really wanted to bat at the top of the lineup. You did not want to face him. Well, the Dodgers knew that Campaneris had done it in '65. That game at the end of the year drew 21,000 in Kansas City. Now, that was like an opening day crowd. When Tovar pitched, it was barely over 11,000 in Minnesota when he threw against the club.
Wow.
But it is unusual, and it's just out of whack.
I think Rick makes a good point. If I'm a hitter, there's no way I want to face Tovar.
Oh, you don't want to do it. No.
Because you're never going to hear the end of it. If you make an out, you're going to get razzed. And if you get a hit, it doesn't count. Exactly. It was off an infielder. Right?
Well, David Ross, who has gone on to become a terrific veteran Major League catcher, a World Series winner, and a guy renowned by staff mates as a terrific receiver, was for a long time known as the guy that took Mark Grace deep. Remember when Mark Grace pitched an inning as a Diamondback?
Yes.
And David Ross, I think, may have been a Dodger.
He was with the Dodgers. And Mark is still trying to live it down.
You just don't want to wear
Because when you go
that.
back into the history, Mark Grace only pitched, so he gave up a home run. David Ross can raise his hand and says, and it was me that hit the home run.
Full count, 3-2 to Howie Kendrick. A jam shot ground ball to shortstop for Barmes, and out number 2. Speaking of the Diamondbacks, a notable ex-Diamondback is up in the San Diego bullpen as the next to pitch for Bud Black and Darren Balsley tonight. Jose Valverde is trying to make a comeback as a San Diego Padre. And we are told that Papa Grande might have an appearance here tonight.
He's having a great spring. Darren Balsley, the pitching coach for the Padres, is saying that he's lighting it up. He's throwing the ball extremely well. All of his pitches. He's one of those guys, gentlemen, that when you see him with the opposing team and he goes through that act, and you want to wring his neck. But the talk in the clubhouse, what a great guy, funny guy, great personality, a guy you love to have on your team, Jose Valverde.
But you don't get that impression when he's on the mound. And Will Ferrell, quite frankly, would be best advised not to arrive here until Valverde has already pitched in the game.
2 balls and no strikes to count to Andre Ethier, a strikeout victim his first time.
I don't know when either those 4 guys, when they happen to play all 9 positions, I don't know if anyone charged the mound. But with Valverde, you better get a head start. And by the way, you might want to bring some guys along with you.
2-1 to Ethier, Juan Uribe waiting on deck. Well, we'll see if this one stays true to form as a Cactus League game. And it looks like Papa Grande's in no particular hurry to get hot now. He had been up earlier. We'll see if some of the regulars rotate out by the time Will Ferrell gets here and rotates himself in to finish his day.
Well, Andre Ethier just had a shin burger right here. Maybe a little piece of cheese on the ouch, man. Right on the
just above the ankle. And Mark, I think you will agree to this. Now, you were a pitcher, but I tell you what, there are things that you miss having played this great game of Major League Baseball. What Andre Ethier just experienced is not one of the things that you miss. The excitement of the unknown, the competition, it's the highest level that this great game of ours has. But I'll tell you what, you foul that ball off your foot or foul it off your ankle, when the clock strikes midnight, the glass slipper is not going to fit.
And you know what that's like? Kids, if you go out to your garage, go to your dad's toolbox and you get a hammer and you just smoke yourself.
Don't do that, kids.
No, I'm not encouraging that, but that's what it's like.
2-2 to Ethier. You know, why is he not? And I can't recall a time when I remember Andre Ethier not wearing the protective shin guard. He's not wearing it tonight unless it's underneath his britches.
He may the next at bat. I guarantee tomorrow he'll be wearing one.
Yeah.
And as a pitcher, I'm going right back in there.
Oh, yeah. Low and inside.
Yep.
Slider.
Now his hands are hurting from getting in his kitchen. He'd make him forget about his shin.
Somebody give him some ice.
A couple of scoreless innings by Matt Whistler, plugging right along tonight. Middle of the evening, still scoreless in Peoria. Pitch hit and run presented by Scott's is the official youth skills competition of Major League Baseball. It's free for boys and girls aged 7 to 14. Play your way to the national finals and have a chance to compete during All-Star Week in Cincinnati. Find a local competition in your area at pitchhitrun.com. Justin Upton leads things off in the home half of the fifth. Upton, Quentin, and Middlebrook scheduled as Mike Bolsinger sticks around for another inning on the mound.
Got ourselves a pitcher's duel, boys.
We do. A multiple pitched pitcher's duel. Were you in Atlanta? Were you pitching as a Brave for the combined no-hitter finished by the great Al Pena, former Dodger Al Pena?
No, I was hurt that year, Matty. Thanks for bringing that up, though. I was on the bench cheerleading with the pom-poms.
Upton with a drive into the left field corner. Crawford can't get to it. And the game's first extra base hit, indeed our first runner in scoring position, comes to lead off the bottom of the fifth.
I believe it was Kent Merker that started that ball game. Pena came in from relief. Doing that broadcast, I watched Pena. He got the game ball. Now here's a combined no-hitter. On his way off the field, Pena tossed it into the stands.
Oh, no.
He didn't realize it was a combined no-hitter.
I'd forgotten that was against the Dodgers.
Yes, it was.
Nice, short, compact stroke from Upton. And when he is on fire, man, the sound of the ball off that bat, and Rick, I know you played with guys who have that certain sound, but I think Upton is in that category.
There's such a difference between the nomenclature of bat speed and swinging hard.
Carlos Quentin picks on the first pitch and rolls a ground ball down to Uribe, one away.
The hard swing is effort, but the quick swing that Upton has and the other guys that have just really powerful hands, you're keeping the body back in order to allow the barrel of the bat to get through. The guys that lunge and say, I'm going to hit it 9 miles, those are the guys, in essence, they're fighting against themselves, and the swing gets long and slow.
Justin Upton is really going to be an interesting player to watch this year. He's off second base with one gone now for Will Middlebrooks, and for a couple of reasons. He's back in the NL West, and I think that Despite what he accomplished in Atlanta, his best seasons were in Arizona. Contractually speaking, he's got 1 year left on the current deal. So A.J. Preller and the Padres will have an opportunity to perhaps turn him into something else prior to the deadline, should they choose. They would have a chance to enter into long-term extension dialogue, should they choose. Or they wait and play out the string, and they have a bona fide middle-of-the-order star for 6 months this year.
Yeah, and a great graphic they just showed. If you combine Justin and Kent, how their production has gone up when they have played at Petco Park. Everybody talks about Petco, you don't hit home runs. Maybe the case, but you have acres and acres by which to get extra base hits for the guys that are power hitters.
Rick, you know what? That's a discussion that fans, players, everybody talks about, right? Hitting the long ball at Petco Park. And I want to make a point after this pitch. And I'll say it. With the previous lineups the Padres have had the last 3 to 5 years, power's not one of the.
Who's going to hit them?
But my point was, the opposition didn't have any problem hitting home runs.
No.
So it all boils down to the hitters that they got, and they've got that potential this year as the wind is just kicked up, coming straight in from center field.
If you hit it out to left field, you better get all of it, because that's where the wind's coming from.
I think a big key, guys, for this Padre team is getting out of April. The last handful of years below 500. If they can get out of April above 500, because 23 games since opening day is April 6th, and Rick, I'll be seeing you there up at Chavez Ravine. 17 are within the division, so that's, you know, either you're going to be digging a hole or you got a chance to play 500 or be above 500, right? 17 of 23 within the division.
Big curveball taken for called strike 3. Middlebrooks retired for route number 2.
The Dodgers had something ahead of them last year that they needed to improve upon from the year before. As Bolsinger spins that breaking ball for the strikeout. The Dodgers had to play better against their own division, the West. They did not play particularly well. And that's kind of the story with the Padres. They were 33 and 43 against the West. And the biggest thing for San Diego, I think, Mark, your ball club, is to improve that road record. 29 and 52, and that's not going to get it done.
Not going to do it.
There's Yonder Alonso now. San Diego trying not to strand the leadoff double by Justin Upton.
I think with the addition of free agents and signings and trades that the Padres have made, I think it's going to make Yonder Alonso a better hitter in the lineup. Maybe get a little bit of protection. The long ball, everybody says, well, how many home runs is he going to hit? Well, it doesn't matter. Doubles are fine.
Yeah, I don't think anybody ever projected Yonder Alonso as a 30 home run guy, right?
30 plus doubles, yeah.
Sure. A different animal, but I don't know that he's that kind of hitter. And I think he's proven that. He's been around long enough to have a big enough sample size, quote unquote.
39 doubles for Alonso back in 2012 with the Padres, first year as a Friar.
Ball and 2 strikes to him here. 2 gone, runner at second.
I think the left-hander, Bud Black, has got a little Will Ferrell in him, huh? They can pass for brothers, I think.
He actually does an unintentional Will Ferrell impression when he starts to crack wise, which he is prone to doing.
I think if you get them side by side, siblings.
Off the end of the bat for Uribe, and that leadoff double is laid waste. Played 5 complete in the Cactus League tonight. Will Ferrell should be getting here in moments. He was supposed to pitch the 5th. They're going to have to back him up. Still scoreless in Peoria.
Rojo winds and deals. Oh, he threw it behind him, and now, threw behind him, and Rojo's been ejected. And Rojo's trying to, threw water on him.
A beer.
Whoever the Nashville pinch hitter is chasing Rojo off.
That was May of 2010 when Will Ferrell had signed a contract, quote unquote, to pitch for the Astros AAA club, the Round Rock Express. He was ejected as the character Billy Ray Rojo Johnson. Those that weren't in on the joke were upset that night, but just about everybody knew that it was Will Ferrell. Just about everybody knew it was a shtick. And I'm not sure he has the same kind of theatrics in store for us tonight, but he is, Rick Monday, scheduled to pitch sometime this evening.
Well, since his afternoon started very, very early, and he's been on the go really since 6 o'clock this morning, I doubt that he's able to match that speed that he was having running off the mound.
Kevin Quackenbush is the new pitcher for San Diego, quickly on top of Juan Uribe, 0-2. And a 3-pitch strikeout starts Quackenbush's appearance here in the 6th.
Kevin Quackenbush had quite a year last year for San Diego. Record 3-3 out of the bullpen, 54 in a third innings pitch, but fewer hits, 42 knocks in 54 innings. Now the thing about Kevin is that he doesn't throw that hard. He's not overpowering. He'll touch 90, 91, over the top, a little bit of deception, fastball, curveball, split combo. Tell you what, he showed some guts out there on the mound too. He is not scared. He is not afraid to pound the strike zone.
Mark, is he a guy that's also, you hear back that, well, there's a breaking ball over the top, but can be little, what they call sneaky?
Absolutely. And you know what? That's a great discussion, Rick, because Darren Ballsy, the pitching coach with the Padres, and I have had many discussions. You know what the big thing is right now for pitchers? Spin rate. You guys heard that term?
Yeah.
Spin rate. How much spin a pitcher gets out of the hand to home plate. And the general consensus among pitching coaches is that when a pitcher has a higher spin rate, there's more sneaky fast because the ball tends to have a little bit more life to it. And I know, physically speaking, a ball, once it leaves the hand, it starts to slow down, but that rotation makes it a little bit more jumpy, a little bit more life to that pitch. And I think that's what Quackenbush possesses.
And with that backspin, you would imagine aerodynamically, gravity's going to take place, but aerodynamically, can it stay on the same plane a little bit longer than someone that does not generate the same backspin?
Rick and I worked on building the space shuttle, by the way.
Lord. Alongside Bill Nye, the science guy, and Carl Sagan, I'm Matt Vasgersian here in Peoria. What, you guys with a spin rate? Wow. Hey, now that we're into that, where do each of you stand on the sabermetrics discussion? And that's not to say all sabermetrics, but things like UZR, some of the advanced metrics.
I'm not a big saber guy. No, that's just me. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but Rick,
I think when it can supplement what you're able to see with your eyes and go along, because I'm still hung up. You bring up something. I've been carrying this around for a couple of days, and I saw it the other day. And it's defensive efficiency ratio. And if you look at the formula to figure this out, you can figure out the hypotenuse of just about anything. But where's the basis to go from? The scouting reports now. Are you looking at your lifelong, your career-long percentage of where you hit the ball? Or are you looking at the last month? Are you looking at breaking it down, how you've done against that particular pitcher?
I'm still having trouble with the acronym RBI.
I believe that too. I don't think you're lying about that.
But as a pitcher, you understand ERA very well.
Ball 4 to A.J. Ellis, so a base runner in the Los Angeles half of the inning with one gone.
When it comes to numbers, the only reason why I look at numbers like hits to innings pitched, right? I like whip. I think whip is a good one. Walks and hits to innings pitched for a pitcher.
3 orange whips.
Yeah. And how to quantify, you just don't throw out a number to say a number. I like to throw out a number and then quantify it with another team or another player. That makes sense to me. But when you go Goodwill Hunting on me, ain't gonna do it, bud.
There's Jock Peterson now with 1 out and 1 on.
Peterson had 1 at bat the other day. Camelback Ranch, Glendale. Was a runner at third, less than 2 outs, and the first swing was an overswing. And he did something that really impressed me. He shortened up the stride the next pitch just to make sure in spring training, but he hit the ball to the right side and scored the run. To me, that told me a lot about the thought process of Jock Peterson.
Middle pops, trying to stay fair for Middlebrooks, but it's a couple of rows deep. And it's 0-2 to Jock Peterson.
You think, Rick, that it helps, and this is a rhetorical question because I know what the answer is going to be, but Don Mattingly, the skipper for the Dodgers, and a Jock Peterson, to help him along the way. I mean, I know Jock is a good athlete, probably has good baseball instinct, and Don Mattingly, Donnie Baseball, it's good to have a manager like him, isn't it not, to have a guy like Jock Peterson?
Well, he has a track record as a player and now as the manager. Mark McGwire is the hitting coach. John Valentin is also the assistant hitting coach. So they're all working in unison. But you have a young player in Peterson that has had phenomenal numbers at the minor league level. And again, he can go get it. He can run it down in center field. Tonight he's the designated hitter. But as all young players, you come up. It's the old story about the young player that signs and all of a sudden he sends a postcard or two home. Dear Mom, having a wonderful time, chasing my dream. And she doesn't hear from him for a while. And then there's that final postcard that says, Dear Mom, get my room ready. They're starting to throw the curveball and I'll be home soon.
Well, I think the Peterson family would be safe to rent out Jock's room for the next number of years.
Yes, and you can put it on a long-term lease too.
A terrific future ahead of him. You know, people like to kind of poo-poo the AAA numbers that come out of the Pacific Coast League for a lot of reasons. Rarefied air, clay-baked infields. Jock Peterson did something in AAA and the PCL last year that had not been done in 80 years, and that's become a 30-30 player. Part of a terrific minor league body of work, and that's why the Dodgers are so intrigued by his skill set.
I think one thing is the balance. Has a tendency to get back on his right heel during the swing.
And is caught looking at a called strike 3. 2 gone for Kevin Quackenbush here in the 6th. You know, there's a little extra buzz in the ballpark as we take a look at Peterson being frozen on a pitch he thought was outside. We're told that Will Ferrell is here, and he is making preparations somewhere to get into this ball game. His 5th and final appearance in a very busy Cactus League day for him. Jimmy Rollins now with 2 gone.
With Peterson taking that last strike, I'm reminded of a story long time ago. The late and the great Duke Snider. Duke Snider did not really have a definitive strike zone early in his career. What they wound up doing is in batting practice, they got him in the cage. A pitcher did not have a screen in front of him, and they had Duke Snider get into the cage without a bat. And the pitcher threw to him, and his job during a couple of days of doing this, to learn his strike zone, would call the pitch and then try and tell people exactly where in that strike zone or off the strike zone where the pitch was located.
How many big league veterans today do you think would allow themselves to be drilled in that manner?
You only have to use one hand. I think the normal response you'd have is, what?
Right. 2 balls and no strikes to count to Jimmy Rollins. High and deep into the right field corner. There's the first ball that's got a chance tonight, but that one is pulled foul.
I think the wind helped that one a little bit go foul.
So too.
Hitting is really a lot of fun at batting practice. But you have to realize it's not just fun, there is work. Either you're getting ready for the game, you're trying to accomplish something, and it's very easy to work on those things that we are talented at doing on the baseball field. It's difficult and painful sometimes to work on the things that you don't do well, whether it be charging a ball, hitting a curveball, whatever it may be.
What type of BP batting practice hitter were you, Rick?
About a 530 hitter, because they say the guys that hit the ball a long way in batting practice and then don't hit it very well in the daytime or in the ball game, they call them 5 o'clock hitters. That was about a 530, 545 hitter.
3-1 to Rollins is again whistled into that right field corner and foul.
You know, you talked about the late great Duke Snider, and it still pains me to say the late great Tony Gwynn, because Tony did so many things that were just mind-boggling as a hitter. I remember throwing BP to Tony, and he would just take pitches, and his philosophy was to see the ball out of the hand and just recognize certain pitches, even if it was a strike. Okay, that was a strike. Take a ball. Okay, that was a ball. He would. The great thing about Tony was that he would let me mix it up. Okay, Mud, mix it up. Not tell him what's coming. Split finger, curveball, slider, and he would call it out of my hand as the pitch was coming in. It really did wonders for your confidence.
Well, as a hitter, that's what you're trying to pick up.
Yeah.
The release point. Where does the pitcher most oftentimes let the ball go? When he's tracking the pitch, you have to see the ball before you can hit the ball, and you have to let it come to you.
He had the eagle eye, man.
How many times did you see Tony fooled by pitch?
Very, very rarely.
Not too often.
Quackenbush's next 3-2 is again fouled away, and Jimmy Rollins has given him a pretty good fight here. Another foul ball. It stays full.
And I guarantee you, when Tony was fooled, I've seen him been spun into the ground in the batter's box a couple times. It was on a good split finger fastball because Tony said that was the toughest pitch to hit.
And he would always tip his cap too.
Absolutely.
Scoreless ball game in the 6th. 2 gone, a runner aboard. The next 3-2 to Jimmy Rollins is hit in the air out to shallow left. Upton and Barmas are there, and the shortstop makes the catch to keep the scoreboard clean once again. The middle of inning number 6. The Dodgers and Padres are still scoreless. Buzzing, if you will, with Will Ferrell making his appearances throughout the Cactus League. The A's tweeting this. Bean and Melvin broke the trade news to Will, told teammates he won't forget where he came from. Josh Reddick's active on Twitter, the A's outfielder. Pretty sure I'm never going to use that glove. I'm never using that glove again today. Framing it. Sean Doolittle is a big Twitter guy. Hey, Will Ferrell, did we just become best friends? Yup. Steve Bucinich in the A's clubhouse. Terrific equipment man, lining him up with all the gear and apparently using somebody else's glove today in A's camp. That was the first game for Will Ferrell today, the first of 5 after he makes his appearance in moments here tonight. Adam Liberatore is the new pitcher on the mound for Los Angeles, taking over in the bottom half of the 6th inning and facing Jed Jerko to start things for San Diego. A number of changes, and we'll post those for you as we get going here tonight. It is that time of night, of course. Cactus League game. Whenever you see guys doing sprints in the outfield, you know there have been some bodies switching places.
I love that about spring training. And once again, going back to like preseason NBA, NFL, NHL, you don't see football players running on the sidelines, right? After a few series.
No, you're right about that.
You don't see the quarterbacks after a game, right? Going on the sidelines and getting some extra work in from snaps. You know, pitchers in spring training might go out and throw 30 pitches. And then they want to go to the bullpen and work on some other pitches. And
there may be more sprints in the outfield tonight because they're waiting for Will Ferrell to show up as well. You know, guys, one of the changes, and if a ball has hit that area, the Dodgers are very high on a few of their players. And there's Scott Van Slyke that is in left field. The big name that people are looking at, he's still away from the major league level. Corey Seager at shortstop. He's 6'4", and he has done just about everything that you can do at the minor league level.
That's like Cal Ripken territory.
Bounced up the middle. There's Seager on display on cue, Mr. Monday.
I rest my case. We have seen him. He's been remarkable. Is 6'4", a little bit too tall for a shortstop. And Don Mattingly used the comparison. We didn't want to say it. There was a guy named Ripken who was about 6'4", 6'4 and a half at shortstop. So we talk about Seager and what he has done, and almost on cue. He makes a good play up the middle.
Looks like a pretty good first step there, reaction, and also the arm flipping it across the diamond. Nicely done, Corey Seager. Working some night moves over there at shortstop.
Very nice. There's a little pop that gets out to second base, out to short right off the bat of Clint Parmas that's handled by the new second baseman Darnell Sweeney. Well, the Dodgers have been holding very close this heralded trio of prospects who, according to what you may have read and heard last year, the thought of compensating the Phillies with the entire gaggle of them was not something that the Dodgers liked the idea of, and it was rumored that that was something that Ruben Amaro Jr. and the Phillies tried to do. Hey, we'll give you Cole Hamels, Southern California native, maybe one of the best left-handers out there that's not named Clayton Kershaw, and in exchange we want Urias, we want Seager, we want Peterson. And apparently it was a pretty easy no for the folks in LA.
Peterson is the closest of the three. Urias is just still 18 years of age. Seager is a youngster. But really both ball clubs stood fast and did not get rid of some future and some bright prospects.
Another 1-2-3 inning. We're moving on to the 7th in Peoria tonight. Still scoreless. Ago, this is like Elvis leaving the building, right? Moments ago, Will Ferrell arriving here in Peoria. It looks like he was still wearing his White Sox breeches because that was the last contest that he appeared in earlier tonight, the Giants-White Sox game at Camelback Ranch. We're told he's here, and after that confirmation video, we should expect to see him out there anytime. Or was he wearing a Giants uniform?
Giants jersey, I think, and then the White Sox pants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was
half
kind
and half.
of mixed up there, if you will. So some changes for San Diego now as we get to the top half of the 7th. Nick Vincent takes over on the mound.
Oh, the pride and joy, a local kid from San Diego, Ramona. 63 games last year for Nick, and you know what? This guy pounds the strike zone. He's a cutter, fastball type guy. He incorporates a slider and occasionally a changeup. Not a hard thrower. 88 to 90 miles an hour. He hits his spots, put up good numbers for the Padres the last couple of years.
Scott Van Slyke is the first to face him. He picks on the first pitch and hits a high fly ball into foul territory. That is handled by the new Padres shortstop, Ramiro Pena. And look at all the activity. Oh, my goodness. This is rock star stuff. Will Ferrell is making his way out toward the field in a Giants jersey near the Padres dugout. I think he's being booed because he's wearing a Giants uniform. I mean, if you could find common ground for Padres and Dodgers fans, it would be that they all hate the Giants.
Exactly. Someone should have reminded him of that.
This is great stuff.
Change in a hurry or duck.
There is a good chance that he knows exactly what he's doing, by the way. Here's Yasiel Puig now with 1 away.
He'll be cheered when he comes out with the right uniform.
He's got to be spent. Oh. I mean, he's not going to be able to get out of bed tomorrow.
No, he will, but I need a forklift.
Look, he got a lot of work in that Angels-Cubs game earlier. That was the second game that he played in. And he played first base. I believe he played an entire inning in center field with the Angels. Had to make a couple of plays in that game. He wasn't just out there standing around waiting for the winds to die down. A ball and 2 strikes on Yasiel Puig. What's he doing down there? He's in the Padres dugout.
I think he went up into the locker room to make a quick change.
We thought he was going to pitch for the Dodgers. That was the first thing he was going to do. Well, the first thing he was going to do was umpiring it. He was going to kick off a base umpire. Then he was going to pitch for LA in the 5th, and then the plan was to play right in the San Diego 9th, in the top of the 9th for San Diego. I think those plans have changed because of the pace of this ball game. It's just clipping right along as Yasiel Puig strikes out. So 2 away for Nick Vincent, and that'll bring up Adrian Gonzalez. I think it's still a little polarizing for Padre fans to see Adrian Gonzalez as a Dodger. He is a native son, a local guy, born and raised in San Diego. Stars for a Dodger team that is not only the closest geographic rival, but the closest emotional rival for Padre fans as well. And he still occupies a place in the all-time record books. A ball and a strike to him.
It does become an emotional issue, and for years and years I had difficulty sizing up Dusty Baker in the Giant uniform. Quite frankly.
Interesting.
Johnny B did not look the same.
Well, I've said this for a number of years, that if Orel Hershiser can go on to pitch for the Giants, then anybody can play for anybody's rival. Of course, in San Diego, 5 terrific years there. He is still 5th on the all-time career batting average list at 288. 161 home runs, 2nd in franchise history. The 4th highest all-time RBI total as a Padre.
One of the smoothest swings that I've seen in a long time, being teammates with Will Clark. One of the prettiest swings from the left side. But the opposite field power, Rick, from Adrian Gonzalez. We saw it at Petco Park.
Power opposite way, and if you get runners in scoring position, Adrian Gonzalez is probably at the top of the list. Well, he was last year as far as the runs batted in. Very meticulous in the way that he goes about hitting. And Adrian Gonzalez has also told Don Mattingly, the manager, that he wants to get a lot of swings, a lot of appearances, plate appearances in spring training. He's not one of those guys that, look, I'm going to play 3 innings and get out and I'll play every other day. Adrian Gonzalez likes to have a lot of at-bats under his belt before the season opens.
2 balls and 2 strikes.
Padres have the shift on, and yet the pitch was away. And most hitters will look at the defense and say, okay, the defense is around the pull as it is there. 3 men to the right side of the second base bag. Lone man on the left side, just one. But when you see the shift, you are expecting to see the ball also inside.
Yeah, and that's a good point. It's one thing to play the overloaded infield, but unless your pitcher is on the same page and he is pitching to the shift, then it really doesn't make much sense.
That's the key. You got to hit your spot, right? Padre pitchers proved that last year. They hit their spots with regularity. Hence the great ERA, both relievers and starters alike.
Gonzalez tried to beat the shift with a bunt attempt in his first plate appearance tonight. It's put into the opposite field, but right at Will Middlebrooks, who had scooted over into the perfect spot. It's another 1-2-3 inning. We've hit the 7th inning stretch. Will Ferrell is making his way into the mix. Still scoreless. Diego dugout, and that's because Will Ferrell is making his long-awaited appearance, his final appearance in the Cactus League tonight. He's going to pitch the bottom of the 7th. And he is all business. How about that steely-eyed glare?
Ready? So we're going to got one fastball,
yeah,
2 curveballs, right, 3 sliders, throw a change if you want.
Have you heard of a slurge?
Slurge. Okay.
I throw a slurge. I learned that in Japan.
Okay.
Give me 5-5. Okay.
I can't wait for the 5-5.
The unveiling of a new major league weapon, the slurge, and you heard it live. We could get those camera guys to back off. Maybe he'd have a chance to warm up properly. He's trying to make the club after all. Come on.
I think there's a possibility that after tossing an inning, or how many pitches he's going to throw, or how many hitters he's going to face, I think on the docket is going to be a visit with Dr. Andrews. Maybe some Tommy John surgery is in store. Hopefully not.
He looks crafty, doesn't he?
Stays over the rubber nicely. He's got a good, nice arm slot.
Give me a comp, Mudcat. Who do you compare him to at this point in his career?
Paul Quantrill.
It's good.
The crowd is cheering on every ball that he throws, and looking at both dugouts, you have major league players that are watching an actor trying to raise money for cancer, and both dugouts, every pair of eyes glued on the man on the mound.
I got a better comp for you. I got Big Daddy himself.
Rick Russell?
I got Rick Russell.
I throw a lot of ground balls. I'm a ground ball pitcher, pretty much. Talking people.
Darwin Barney getting in on the act.
Oh, boy.
Pointing over to the first baseman. Hey, if the ball's hit over there, I got you covered.
This is great.
Austin Barnes is the catcher, and this is an appearance I don't think that Austin will soon forget. Here we go. Rico Noel is the batter.
And he just moved up in the box.
I think he gave the 5-5 too.
Well, Noel's getting a stare down on top of it.
See if he flashes the 5-5.
Bunting back to Farrell. And there's one away.
He's got his game face on.
Shades of Doug Jones, the late Rod Beck. And it looks like that's going to be all for Will Ferrell tonight. He doesn't want to, he won't even look Donnie in the eye. Look at this. He's not even going to look. He doesn't want to give up the rock.
Remember in the World Series when Tommy Lasorda came to the mound to take out Doug Rauch?
I told these guys I'm a ground ball pitcher.
They had it right. They played it perfect.
They played it.
One more hitter.
Give me one more. I still made the team, right?
Absolutely.
All right.
He's a superstitious lad, too.
That's a potential. That's a potential.
Thank you. Tommy.
Nice play.
Don't worry, buddy. Good to see you. Good to see you.
How you feeling?
This is one of my sons. Yeah, this is Matthias. His friend Wyatt.
Let's take it.
Yeah, come on. Guys, get in here.
Guys, get in here.
Are these guys behaving? Are they behaving? Okay.
How you been, Will?
Mattingly already cut me, just like that.
Yeah.
You've been great. How about yourself?
I know you wanted to stay in there, but
I know.
we didn't want
You know what it's like when you got to pull a guy when he needs to stay in, right?
I've been pulled and I pulled.
And you pulled many times.
That's right. Good to see you, Will.
Good to see you, too.
Take care of yourself here.
I tried my best, Coach. I tried my best. I'm sorry.
I'll
great.
see you, Will. Take care of
Okay,
yourself.
thanks, Tommy. Thanks, buddy.
Bye, guys.
You guys say goodbye?
It's quite a crew you got.
Did you meet the manager? Did you meet?
Say hello on the way in.
Okay, good. See you guys. Are you chewing tobacco right now? Did these guys give you chewing tobacco? All right, good. Hey, Mark. Yeah, how are you? Nice to meet you, too. Hey.
Nice job, Will.
I know it didn't look pretty at first, but I got it dialed in, okay? Hey, man. How are you? I heard your dad at school.
Yep.
Yeah. I missed playing basketball with you.
Hey, yeah.
The other night. Yeah.
Next time.
Yeah. What's up, guys? All right.
Well, let me take a picture with you.
I think I just got released, so I apologize. Tried my best. I'm a ground ball pitcher, and I got the ground ball. Let me get one. All right. Well. All right, guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Have you guys been drinking Mountain Dew? Yeah.
Hey, are we going to get kicked out of Applebee's?
Yeah, let's go. Let's go to an Applebee's on me after this.
One of them smoked a cigarette.
You guys want?
Yeah.
I knew it.
Yeah.
One more.
You gotta tip your hat.
Oh.
Got a hat out there.
Oh. That's the lamest curtain call in baseball history right there. It's a pretty lame curtain call, but I'll take it.
Well, one pitch, and that's it for the Dodger career of Will Ferrell. He did get his man. He got the out, as he promised. A ground ball guy delivered. And Derek Norris bats now with one away.
Get a shot at the bench.
Hey, he's got a 0 ERA.
I'm pretty sure we'd all rather listen to Will.
So you're going to see this?
0-2.
And now Raven comes in. I got to follow that act.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Josh Raven is the new pitcher for the Dodgers. Let me ask you this, Rick. It looked like Will wanted to stay out there for another batter. Don Mattingly was going to have nothing of it. It's one thing to face a guy and get your out on a bunt, but do you think
he's snapping?
Snapping.
Get guys out, okay?
And a breaking ball retires Norris.
He may add another dimension to his playing all 9 positions. He may get fined.
You know, as a ball player, you got to learn to control your emotions. I don't think I did right there. Anybody find my glove? That was something. That was something.
How did this year? It's harder.
I mean, this could very well be the end of my career. I feel like there's maybe only one other team out there that wants me, and I don't know. I just didn't plan for today to go this way. It's just weird. You never want to think you're at the end of your career until I think it creeps up on you, and you have to accept it. So kind of going through a lot of emotions right now. And, I just need one more team to give me a chance, you know. And I just pray there's one more team out there that'll take me.
Ball and 2 strikes to count to Matt Kemp. We should mention that Will Ferrell is
still haven't tried right
doing
field.
a lot of this as a part of a production.
And that's my hope.
In collaboration with HBO and Funny or Die, the website that Will has a part of it. Get back to the dialogue. He's going to take a moment, put on a Padre uniform, and finish out his big Cactus League day a little later on, still scoreless. training telecast presented by Best Western from the Peoria Sports Complex in the Cactus League. Matt Vasgersian here with from Fox Sports San Diego, Mark Grant from Sportsnet LA, Rick Bundy and Alana Rizzo. And moments ago, Will Ferrell, the man of the hour, taking another photo op with Campy Campaneris, who's all 9 feet 50 years ago.
Inspired me.
Is in part being celebrated. That happened just a moment ago, and Will has gone up the tunnel, as they say, to change into a Padre uniform. He'll end the night as San Diego's right fielder. And Darnell Sweeney is retired to start the top half of the 8th. The new pitcher on the mound for San Diego, and he is the former Yankee right-hander Sean Kelly.
Well, another great addition for this Padre bullpen, who really did a nice job last year bridging that gap from starter to closer. Houston Street / Joaquin Benoit. Sean Kelly, fastball, slide, occasional changeup, low 90s. He's touched 94 in spring early on. Good slider from Sean Kelly.
One gone, bases empty for Chris Heisey.
Good live action at the last second. You can see where that slider would be effective. Running fastball out of the hands of a right-handed batter. Chris Heisey is the hitter.
Heisey, one of the early off-season acquisitions by the Dodgers, and plans to have opportunities from the right side of the plate, although he will have to share those F-Troop opportunities as a right-handed hitting outfielder with Scott Van Slyke, who was such an important platoon player last year for the Dodgers. And it's 3 balls and a strike to the former Red.
Heisey can play different positions. The outfield, no question about it. 6th major league season. It's going to be coming up, but as far as a pinch hitter, he has really done a good job.
And Kelly finishes him off with a slider.
A good tilt, good depth, that breaking ball out of the hand of Sean Kelly. I'll tell you, the Padres, it's a good problem to have, gentlemen. Too much pitching, right? As we take another look up top, pull it, and the slider on the inside corner cannot catch up to it.
Here's Darwin Barney now with 2 away.
A lot of managers and general managers would say there is no such of an animal as too much pitching. Reference I made earlier, the Dodgers came last year with four guys that had experience as closers at the major league level, and yet they struggled and really struggled in the playoffs. Don Mattingly had a struggle to try and get the ball to Kenley Jansen. Rick Honeycutt is seated to the left of Don Mattingly. And for Rick Honeycutt has done an amazing job in his tenure now as the pitching coach. You look at the Dodgers, and their earned run average and effectiveness has been really off the charts.
And Rick Honeycutt has the kind of tenure that you don't see a lot of coaches enjoy. He was one of the inherited pieces when Don Mattingly came aboard. And it was in very short order that they came to form a mutual admiration society. And now they are trusted colleagues. But there was not a lot of familiarity, Rick, as you know better than anybody, between Don Mattingly and Rick Honeycutt when the relationship began. And a very fine layout catch to retire the side. Yeah, Will Myers is taking advantage of all these spring innings to learn the craft of center field. Only 8 games there over 2 years. San Diego's hoping he can grab that position and stay cemented as their center fielder. A fine play there to retire the side. Hey, we're heading into a part of the game where Will Ferrell could make a difference in a score. turn. Stay with people who care. And sponsored in part by Your DQ. This month, get your $5 lunch with not one but two crispy chicken wraps. And by Liberty Mutual Insurance. See car insurance in a whole new light. Changes aplenty late in this Cactus League contest, and one big one still to come as Will Ferrell is scheduled to play right field in the next half inning. That's in the top of the ninth. But until then, a new pitcher for Los Angeles. He is left-hander Ryan Buchter. He'll face Abraham Almonte leading things off for San Diego. Scoreless in the last of the 8. There have been a combined 2 hits in this game. An infield single for Los Angeles. And that came by Carl Crawford back in the top of the 3rd, and a leadoff double that was stranded by Justin Upton in the San Diego half of the 5th. Almonte bunting his way aboard, and he'll do so successfully. Buck Britton couldn't quite pick up with the glove hand, or Darwin Barney, that is.
Buchter, he has spent a lot of time at the minor league level, finally got to the big leagues last year. 1 game of the Atlanta Braves. He's actually pitched well at the minor league level. Barney tried to pick it up and just did not pick it up cleanly, although Almonte got down the line rather quickly also.
Also looks like he may have got screened there on that play, but Almonte, one of those players for Bud Black that can be inserted left field, center field, right field, played all 3 positions last year.
Here's Carlos Quentin now hitless tonight in 2 opportunities. Line to 3rd. And Abraham Almonte's got to scamper back to the bag to avoid being doubled up. There's 1 away.
Remember when you guys were talking about, was it Dusty Baker? Tough for you, Rick?
Exactly.
To see him in the Giant uniform. And Maddie, you mentioned
Orel
Hershiser
as a Giant. Yeah,
it's tough for me to see Darwin Barney wearing number 6. Steve Garvey. I mean, when I was growing up, watching the Dodgers and watching, those years, and I can talk about other teams, but those were the teams that were in my wheelhouse when I was like 8 to 16. And watching Steve Garvey all those years as a Dodger wearing number 6, it's just tough. That's one of those things that every time I see that number, bang, I think of the Garv.
Will Middlebrooks now with 1 out and 1 on. Well, ironically, Steve Garvey's numbers retired in San Diego, but not in Los Angeles. Played 4 years in San Diego. Was that, you were teammates with Steve in San Diego, were you not?
I was in '87, but he was hurt that year and did not play.
Hit perhaps the biggest home run still in franchise history against the Cubs in the '84 NLCS. And that's a large part of his legacy as a Padre, but certainly more years, more hits, more RBIs, more notoriety, more stardom in L.A.
It's tough for me to see Andre Ethier wear number 16. You know why? Because my man, Rick Monday.
Oh, Rick Monday.
Paul LaDuca also
wore number 16.
On the ground to shortstop, and the double play makes for a quick end of the 8th. Will Ferrell's ready to go out and play right field for San Diego in what's an important frame. We're scoreless headed to the 9th.
I don't know. We'll see. Well, I just had a pretty encouraging talk with the manager. It's looking like I got a pretty good chance of making the club. He likes veteran leadership, he said. This is the last one. Here we go. We're about to tie the record right here. 50-year-old marketing record about to be dashed for the 4th time.
Well, we're going to stay here throughout the commercial break as Will Ferrell warms up to play right field here.
Nice.
And hey, a couple of observations. And Mark, we were just talking about this off air.
Hey, don't worry about it. You good? Yeah. Oh, thanks. Thanks. It's been a fun day.
Will Ferrell has worn number 19 most of the day.
Did you get the job done?
I think so.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's because Campy Campaneris wore number 19 as an Oakland A. So tipping his cap to Campy, who's all 9 feet. He's replicating tonight, but number 19 will never be worn in San Diego again.
Retired number, the late great Tony Gwynn, the Hall of Famer. So I'm just guessing because
the wind's
that
swirling.
number is retired.
It's swirling.
In a way, wearing 19 for Bert Campaneris. Will Ferrell honoring Tony Gwynn by not wearing his number.
That's right.
One of the first things
I got to get it stretched out. I did.
It'll take about 3 weeks, Will.
I hit 390, 18 hits and 18 strikeouts. All singles. All singles. No power at all.
Well, we'll see how long he stays out there and right. He's going to start the inning as San Diego's right fielder.
First thing he did, picked up grass, threw it in the air to see which way the wind's blowing. Does he know that Valverde's on the mound?
Wow. Boy, this could make for some great stuff. Jose Valverde is the new pitcher for San Diego.
Am I good here? Yeah. I feel good. Here we go.
You know, we might see some action his way with the hard-throwing Valverde, the right-handed hitter, maybe a little late. Heads up, Will Ferrell.
It's blowing that way.
Austin Barnes, the hitter.
Wind's blowing out that way.
You guys might want to get up the field. You're going to get slow.
Here we go.
To the outfield, but it's the center fielder, Will Myers. And there's one away.
Let's just keep doing that. Okay. Does this guy like to pull? I don't know where to go. No one's giving me any instruction.
There's Jock Peterson now. He can have a ball to right field very easily here.
He's getting a nice setup position out there, Rick. Huh?
He's getting ready. Getting set,
Feels
anticipating.
good. This is going to be my ball club, San Diego Padres. I can live in San Diego. I love La Jolla. My God. Can't believe I'm going to end my career with the Padres.
Oh my, Will Ferrell can't do anything about that one. 1-0 Los Angeles.
He got all of that. He got all of that. Yeah.
Here's Corey Seager now. There had to have been a moment, Rick, when Will thought that ball might be playable for him. When it was coming in his direction, there had to be that nanosecond where he thought, oh my goodness.
Yeah. And then that nanosecond that follows, I hope it's hit out of here, because I won't have to catch it.
And it was by quite a long ways.
And that home run by Jock Peterson, and that's one of the youngsters that we're talking about with his ball club. Is Peterson going to be in center field for the Dodgers when they face the Padres at Dodger Stadium on opening day? Will Ferrell thinks that he still has a chance with the Padres. I do like the way he anticipates. He's timing. He gets actually down. Will Ferrell's played some baseball. He understands that.
There had to have been a baseball project for Will Ferrell at some point in his career, right? He's done a basketball movie. He's done an ice skating movie.
Jackie Moon.
A soccer movie.
I want to see him do the Iron Lotus.
Hey, how many outs?
From Blades of Glory.
There's 2 gone.
Hey, Myers!
So here's Scott Van Slyke.
You know, I'll say Will Ferrell, it's not just because he's wearing number 20. He looks a little bit like Buddy Black. Yeah, I think it's a combination. Buddy Black / Jamie Quirk, who's in the Padre chain.
Little infield pop for Diego Goris. The Dodgers do get a run, the first of the night. On the tape measure home run by Jock Peterson.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for the help. Thanks for the... I couldn't get that one, for sure. Yeah. That's a tough, yeah.
Will Ferrell's busy Cactus League day is over. To the bottom of the ninth, 1-0 LA. Well, the Padres with their last chance tonight, down 1-0 after the Jock Peterson home run in the top half of the ninth inning. And though that was the game's only run, it wasn't the most eventful part of the inning as Will Ferrell finishes out his terrific spring afternoon by playing right field for San Diego. And he's done it, Mo, all 9 today.
I think he's done it all 9. But remember, his morning started at 6 a.m. and it finishes, well, local time about a 8:45. So it has been a long day. Quite frankly, this has been fun. This has been fun for, and I think not only for Will Ferrell, the players, the fans. We've had a blast as well. And to have Campy Campaneris here on site with him and with him all day, it's a special touch.
Pretty neat. In fact, Will Ferrell played for 10 teams today, and I have to believe just the math, he's going to make one of these teams. I mean, he has a 1 in 10 shot at making a club. And Will joins us after a terrific Cactus League day to raise awareness and funds for cancer research. Will, which club do you think you have the best chance of making?
Well, it goes without saying, I definitely turned some heads out there today. You know, a lot of heads negatively, but I think you know, I was saying to someone earlier that so many guys are switching ball clubs all the time, and every club's looking for someone in the clubhouse who can be a presence. A slow, pudgy 47-year-old guy who can get in there and and talk about life experience and wisdom. And so, you know, I don't know, but I definitely expect a call.
Well,
in the morning.
Well, there is a club I heard through Twitter that is most definitely interested in signing you. It's a disco dance club in Scottsdale. They want you as a bouncer.
I'll see. Hey, that's not right. He's a professional athlete.
Yeah, that's not right. You know, that's a low blow.
Well, how do the hamstrings feel right about now?
Right now, they've definitely seized up. I know exactly what Tiger Woods feels like when his glutes aren't firing. Right now, my glutes have ceased to fire and probably won't fire for the rest of 2015.
There's a reason why this is so hard to do.
Yeah, it's a hard game.
Sure, and the fact that you did this for such a great cause, I know that you wanted to generate some dollars and some awareness for cancer research, namely the Cancer for College, an organization founded some years ago. Tell us about that.
Well, my good friend who I met sophomore year at USC, Craig Pollard, who's a 2-time cancer survivor, he started this charity 20 years ago. It's just a small mom and pop operation. Over the last 20 years, we've given away over 2,000 scholarships totaling over $2 million. So with the help of HBO and Major League Baseball today, we're able to raise $1 million, which will give us a ton of, not only help our endowment, but give us the resources to give that many more scholarships out.
That is awesome. I mean, everybody's really blown away by the dollar figure, by all the awareness that you generated here. Was there a moment in the 5 games that you played in where you had that, oh no, it's coming my way feeling?
That would have been with the Angels, center field, when the base hit was actually hit out to me. And not only did I get to it, but I hit the cutoff man.
Yes, you did.
Yeah. But I don't remember any of it. I don't remember. The ball moves fast out there. It's like a speeding bullet. But that was the first moment there where I realized, oh, this is definitely happening. But once I got past that, I was good to go.
Well, I don't know if you were noticing just right now, but you had your left hand on your right shoulder. A lot of throwing today. There you go. How's the old soup bone right about now?
The old soup bone is it's a little soupy. Yeah. You know what? I don't even know if I need it. I've just already signed up for rotator cuff surgery. I'm just going to go in and just say, cut me open, because I'm pretty sure it's all shredded in there.
Well, I have to ask you, you made reference when you left the field, and Campy Campaneris was with you.
Yeah.
You said, thanks for all the encouragement that Campy gave you.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for those who have gotten the honor to meet Bert Campaneris, he could not be a sweeter guy. It was so nice. We started the day with an interview with him, and he kind of explained the story of how all of this started 50 years ago as a promotional stunt for the Kansas City A's at the time. And he was so thankful and honored, and which is surreal because I'm just the guy screwing around out here. But what a sweetheart, and what an honor to kind of further his legacy.
Will, it's been really fun being a part of this and watching you go through a huge day, a terrific day for a great cause. We're going to let you go because we know you want to address the crowd. Thanks for letting us play along. Great job.
Thanks,
man.
Guys. Really appreciate it.
Well, the Dodgers at the end of the day are able to squeak by on this 1-0 decision thanks to a Jock Peterson home run, and lost in all the fun is the fact that a young Dodger, one who we spent some time talking about, Rick, when we went on the air, turns into the star of the game.
Star of the game, and for Jock Peterson, tonight was one of those nights, too, is that we have been around this great game of baseball for a long time. Tonight was like, well, it's like in about the middle of that school day, the teacher told you you're going to get the afternoon off and you can go watch a ball game and have fun. This has truly been fun, and all through this process, raising a lot of money to go and help people down the road.
And I know it's spring training, guys, but this game boiled down to one pitch. You mentioned it, the big bat, the left side of Peterson making the difference in this game. But I think we also saw something else. Will Ferrell, this day and age, probably the hottest commodity out there as far as writer, comedian, actor. But we also saw soft side as well. Going out there today, having some fun on the baseball field and raising awareness and money for cancer.
Yeah.
And we saw the soft side.
A significant amount of money, too, that
the
was
good
raised
heart,
today.
the talent, the humor, and the good heart that Will Ferrell has.
You know, getting back to the baseball angle of tonight, in addition to Jock Peterson, one of the other takeaways for me, James Shields was terrific over 3 innings, 5 strikeouts. Changeup was sharp as it was in August and September of last year when he was so dominant. You know, at the end of the day, we're going to remember Will Ferrell and Jock Peterson. But James Shields was terrific tonight.
He had it all working, all of his pitches. We saw some breaking balls tonight. Darren Balsley told us that before the game. He spotted his fastball. The changeup was great. Same arm slot, same arm speed. I know it's spring training. It's still kind of early.
Sure.
But he really made the hitters look silly up there. Made some good pitches.
And the other part about Shields is he started every hitter off that he faced tonight. First pitch strike. That's phenomenal in itself, especially in the early goings of spring.
Here we go.
Well, Will Ferrell is getting ready to address the crowd, a crowd of over 10,000 on this Cactus League night. And we'll listen in.
What do you guys want? Can you hang up? I can't hold both of them. I don't know where I'm standing, though. Where? Go towards home plate. If I can just have everyone's attention, please. I'd like to say a few words. I'd like to thank you all for today. Thank you. Thanks for coming out to spring training here in Arizona. You know, when I embarked on this journey way back at breakfast, I thought to myself, could I do it? The answer is yes. When I first showed up on the A's doorstep, I thought I'd be an A for life. But then I was a Mariner, and then a Diamondback, an Angel, a Cub, a White Sox, a Padre, a Dodger. I think I'm missing one. Anyway, my career has not gone according to plan. Some teams made a horrible mistake by cutting me. Others I had a nice run with. It seems like just minutes ago I was playing right field for the Padres. The memories. Some of you here are staring at me and wondering what the hell I'm even talking about. Show of hands of those people who have no idea who I am. Wow, that many. Okay. That's more than I thought. That's half the stadium. Was I the best player on the field today? Maybe. Maybe? 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 Can you chant that with me now? Maybe. 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 I know they want to speed up this game, but I say we slow this game down. There's no doubt I turned some heads today, even if it was just for a moment. I brought passion to the field, dedication, ability, and a lot of ignorance. The ball moves fast out there, a lot faster than it looks on television. It's like a speeding bullet. It's horrible. Terrifying. A lot of people saw there is life in this 47-year-old arm. Am I right? They say nothing's more American than grabbing a hot dog, heading to the ballpark, and watching 9 guys from the Dominican Republic make magic on the field. But you know what? Today I learned they are wrong. Make that 8 Dominicans and 1 guy from Irvine, California. Ruth, Musial, Mantle, Will Ferrell. Who would have thought that those names one day would be synonymous with each other? Show of hands. Scratch that. Never mind. In closing, I look forward to addressing all of you again when I go to the Hall of Fame as a Red or a Mariner or whatever. MVP. 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 Thank you. I wish the other teams had the same passion that you guys did for my abilities. On a serious or real note, thank you all. What a day. Thank you to Major League Baseball, to my family, to our production team, and especially to Craig Pollard. Craig is here tonight. Craig's right there. There's Craig, everyone. Big hand for Craig Pollard. 20 years ago, he started Cancer for College, which is a charity that gives scholarships to kids battling cancer. In that time, he's given out over 2,000 scholarships and raised over $2 million. So thank you all. I will never forget what happened today. I can't thank you enough, unless I get hit in the head by a line drive attending a game. But I will never forget today. Thanks again. Good night.
Just get one shot from behind if you're going like that.
Okay.
So,
ready?
Well, the finishing touches on a really fun day of baseball. Cancer awareness.
Which way?
And fundraising.
Ready?
They're putting together some shots for the HBO Funny or Die project. And Will Ferrell's involvement in Cactus League Baseball on this day in the spring schedule has made it a memorable one for all of us.
There's been so much talk about tonight, and we saw it from the players, we saw it from the fans as well, and mixed in between the magic of Will Ferrell being here tonight, we saw some pretty good baseball. But the big message is Will Ferrell's got his arms around everybody else, and that's exactly the message tonight. But I think baseball should be very proud that they have presented this, presented it to the public, and it's been a fun night for all of us.
I think we're looking at a superstar here for this generation, and what he has done as far as in film and today, the ripple effect. I mean, look at all the smiles on everybody's faces, and what he has done today to bring joy to everybody at this ballpark and the ballparks in Arizona today. I'm honored to be a part of it, and it was a pleasure working with you too.
A lot of fun for me, too. Boy, Bud, having worked with you for a number of years in San Diego, and Mo, having known you for a while, never having a chance to be in the booth with you, this has been a blast for me, too. Thanks, guys. Thanks for making it a lot of fun.
Our honor.
Thanks, Matty.
That's going to do it for us tonight. A reminder that coming up next on MLB Network, the Nationals and Mets do battle for Port St. Lucie in Grapefruit League action. So for Mark Grant, Rick Monday, and Alana Rizzo, Matt Vasgersian saying good night from Peoria. Thanks for watching this very special spring training game presented by Best Western. We'll see you next time, and we'll leave you with some of the sights and sounds of Will Ferrell's final act here in Peoria tonight.